Hello, this is Mr. Boyer again, and in this video we're going to look at creating a header and footer, text alignment, and also how to create a table and tabbed text. So to get started, I've already downloaded this week's exercise file, and I'm going to double click the file and open it up and get ready to edit it. So the first thing that we want to do is we want to create a header and footer. Now, as I mentioned at the beginning of this course, I want to make this course useful. And so one of the things we're going to look at is MLA formatting. It's used on a lot of papers, used by a lot of instructors at Reedley College, and I want to show you how to do this correctly. So it's also a great chance to practice headers. There are a couple different ways to create a header. One way is to go to the Insert tab. When you go to the Insert tab, look for the header and footer group and select header. Now when you do that, it's going to drop down and it's going to give you several options. A lot of fancy formatted headers that are available, and it's all based on the style of or the style of document that you've selected. And in this case, so I'm going to use a blank header. So I'm going to go ahead and click blank, and that'll bring us right up into the header. And notice I have a space here to type the text where it says type here. So I'm just going to go ahead and type my last name in keeping with MLA formatting and leave a space. And now I have to put the page number in here. So something about Microsoft Word generally does not like different headers. It tries to give you the same header on each page with a few exceptions. One of them, if you'll look at the options group in the header and footer tools design tab, is that you have the option for a different first page or different odd and even pages. The different first page is to allow you to have a different or even no header on the first page. Some formats require that. And the different odd and even pages will actually allow you to have formatting that conforms to different formats based on binding, mainly for printed documents. In this case, we're going to leave those options blank because we're going to use the same header on every page. So when I add this page number, I can't simply go in and type the number of the page on each header. One Word won't really like that. It won't let us do it. And the other thing is it's time consuming and it leaves a lot of potential for errors in case the number of pages change. So I'm going to come up to the header and footer group and select page number. When I do that, some options come up. Now I can simply insert a page number at the top of the page in the left, center, or right. I can also put it at the bottom of the page in the space that's called the footer. Or I could also put pages in the page margins. But in this case, I'm going to use a page number in the current position. I'm going to use just a plain number. I'm going to put that right after my name. So every page that's added will increment this number by 1. So page 2 will have page number 2, etc. Now, this looks pretty good, but there's one slight problem. This has to be aligned to the right, not the left. So, real simple solution to that. Go to the Home tab up here, and when you click on the Home tab, let's go over to the paragraph bar, and notice I have a place to select Align Left. I have a button for Center or Align Right, and I also have Justify, which distributes the text evenly between the margins. In this case, I'm going to use Align Right, which, if you're keeping track, uses the shortcut Control R. I can also use Control E for center and Control L for left. But in this case, we're going to align right, so go ahead and click that, and it will align our text to the right. Now we have the correct heading. We have the correct header up at the top. Okay, so to exit the header, there are two ways to do that. One, I can come back to the Header and Footer Tools tab, click Design, and then select Close Header and Footer. The other way to do this, and I find it more convenient, is simply to double-click inside the the body of the text, and it'll place us right back where we need to be. Notice that the header text now is grayed out, indicating that we can't edit it right now, and we'll only be able to edit it if we go back into that header. Again, to do that, I could go back up to Insert and select Header up here and go back into it and allow me to edit it. I can also simply double click in the header and it will put me back in there to edit that. Notice when we do that, the body text becomes grayed out. Okay, so I'm going back into the body, and let's follow these beginning instructions again. We've already created a header, and we've already typed the name, added the page number using the automatic page numbering as shown in class, and we're going to align the header text to the right. The next step, in the body of the paper, starting at the upper left corner, we have to create a heading. The heading is what identifies the student and the instructor in the class and the date. So starting up at the top here, we'll go right up to this paragraph mark and we'll begin. So I'm going to type my name. Okay. And I'm also going to put my name since I am the instructor name. You're going to put my name or whoever the instructor is, but your name will be at the top up here. And after that we can put the subject, IS 15. I also like to see a section number. I'm going to use 50443 for the section number. And today's date, that's October 1st, 2018. Okay, so we've done that. Now, we have to make sure this is double spaced. And it looks like it's double spaced, but it really isn't, and I'll show you why. If we highlight this section of text right here, we want this to be double spaced. As a matter of fact, the entire MLA paper format, unless otherwise specified, will be double spaced. In this case, we're not going to use double spacing because we have some other things that we need to do, but we are going to make the heading double spaced. So go up to the paragraph group, and let's find the little menu launcher down in the lower right corner. We'll click that, and it gives us some spacing options. So down here, look in the spacing group. We want to find first where it says spacing after the paragraph. We want to change that to 0 points. Okay, the next thing we want to change is the line spacing. So this is specifying right now that we're at 1.08 line spacing, meaning it's just slightly more than single spaced. In fact, on the line spacing here, I want to use this drop-down menu and go to double spacing. When I do that, it changes the line spacing to double. Click OK, and notice it does actually spread those lines out just a little bit more. Okay, so we've taken care of that. Next, let's look at tables. Okay, so in a document, it's quite often useful to organize information into rows and columns. In order to do that, we have a tool called the Insert Table tool. Click the Insert tab. Once again, we're going to come down to Tables and click the down arrow, and we have a few options. We can actually specify a table by clicking the Insert Table. I'll show you what that looks like. And I can tell it the number of rows and the number of columns, and then we have a couple of options for handling the column width. We can either let Microsoft Office decide how wide those columns need to be. Generally, it will evenly distribute them from margin to margin. We can also tell it to auto-fit the table to fit the contents, or auto-fit to fit a window. We're going to use this, we're going to leave fixed column width and leave it at auto. And as a matter of fact, we're going to go ahead and cancel this because I'm going to show you an easier way to draw a table. So our prompt says, create a table with 5 to 6 rows and 4 to 5 columns. Make the table about your friends. Okay, so we're going to create this table. So I want to have 4 columns. We're going to use 4 columns, and I'm going to use 5 rows. Okay, so I've selected 4 columns, so I've gone over 4 and down 5 and have highlighted that square. Notice it's already given me a preview down below. Once I click on that last square, it leaves the table in place. And now we can start working. So we want to make a table of some information about our friends. We got first name, last name, and we'll have phone number and email. Okay, so first is Chuck, last of Norris, and we'll make up an imaginary number, area code 555 555 1212, and email Chuck at norris.com. Think of some other action stars here. We'll have, let's see, Vin Diesel and 555 555 1234, and Vin at I'll go a little bit older school. Bruce Willis from the Die Hard movies. 555 555 4321. We'll use dieathard.com. There we go. And finally, okay, and so we are at somemovie.com. Okay. And we'll undo that. Okay, so notice it did move just a little bit to accommodate slightly different size information. That's okay. We can change that if we need to, and we'll actually look at resizing those here in just a moment. So looking at resizing these columns, we may decide that we want to save some space. So I can manually drag this line simply by hovering my insertion point over that line until it turns into this little symbol with the two lines and two arrows pointing outwards from each other. And if I click and drag that, I can change the size of that column. I can do the same with all of these columns. But I can also do something a little more a little simpler. I can simply double click that line, and when it does that, watch what happens. It actually resizes it to the minimum size needed to contain everything it needs. Okay, so now we've changed the size of that table. I can also play with the placement a little bit. If I select in the upper left corner, if I select this icon, it highlights the entire table. And then I can do some options here in my mini toolbar. I have the option to center it. I can center the table. I can also use my control keys to align it to the right or align it to the left by selecting Control R or Control L, or I can use Control E to center it again. So let's go ahead and do that. Okay, so this looks pretty good, and I realize it's getting a little busy on here, so I'm going to come up to the Home tab, turn off the formatting marks for a minute, and then I want to go back to the Table Tools tabs. I have two tabs. I have a Design and a Layout tab. Let's look at the Layout tab first. Suppose I want to insert a column between the last name and the phone number to record birthdays. So I can select this entire column, and by doing that, what I'll do is I'll hover over the top of that column until I get that black down arrow, and when I click that, it highlights the entire row. Now I can come over to this tab and simply click the plus sign that pops up, and it'll insert a row for me. Or I can use the rows and columns group in the layout bar to insert left, insert right, I can do the same thing with rows as well. So if I want to insert a row to the left of the phone number, I simply click that right here, and we can put birth date. And then I realize these guys really aren't my friends, so I don't know their birth dates. So I want to get rid of that column again. Real simple. Highlight the entire column by hovering over the very top line of that column and highlight the whole thing. Again, I can use the delete table option on the mini toolbar, but when I do that, it's not the entire table. It actually allows me to delete either a single cell, a single column, a single row, or the entire table. Be careful. I recommend exercising extreme caution. If you do accidentally delete it, don't worry, just hit the undo button. It'll come right back. But we're going to delete that column, select delete column, and it goes back. Okay, we have a few other ways that we can manipulate the data in these cells. I can change the alignment with the alignment bar up here. I can sort the information that's in them. I can actually add formulas to cells, and we can do some simple calculations. It's much less powerful than Microsoft Excel, but it may be useful in some cases. Okay, so I'm going to use a different tab. However, I want to change the format of my table. So going to the Design tab, notice in the Table Styles format, I have a lot of styles that I can choose from. Now the top row in this case has the titles of my friends here, and so I want something that's going to highlight that. So I can look at these different formats, see what might work, and I'm going to select a format. We're going to use something with Reedley College Orange here. Okay, and again, I want to center this, so I'll hit Control E to center it. And I've made some changes. When I highlight this, notice I also have some options. When I go back to design here, I can add a total row that separates the totals. For example, if I have maybe a table that I'm using for accounting, showing some totals, or maybe a budget request, and I want to total up the quantities and the net prices of each of these items, I can add a total row at the bottom. I can also highlight the last column if I like, and we can do some other changes with the table style options. Again, I'll let you play with those and see how those work best for you. Okay, so we have this table. It's been created, and for homework, you're going to create your own table with a minimum of 5 rows and 5 columns, and then add a table style to it. So I do want you to create something different. I don't want you to use the same example of the friends, but find something else that you'd like to create a table of to keep track of things. Maybe it's a grocery list or some kind of shopping list. Maybe it's a budget request for a job that you have. It's totally up to you, but make it look good and make it professional. Put some effort into it. Finally, there's one last way to work with information and to organize it on paper, so to speak. And that's to use what's called a tabbed text. Now, tabbed text is a little bit different than a table in that it's actually text that's within the body of the document. This actually goes back to the days of typewriters, when typewriters had tabs that were set, and they were used to create columns that lined up evenly. So let's put the formatting marks back on. I want you to see where all of these marks go, and we're going to put the insertion point right below the prompt that says Create Tabbed Text. Okay, and we're going to use a schedule of classes to create this tabbed text demonstration. So to get started, we need to look at a couple of features that are on Microsoft Word. If you'll notice up at the left, following my cursor, if you notice at the top, I have the horizontal ruler, and along the left side, the vertical ruler. Now, on yours, they may or may not be visible, so let's see how to turn those on. At the top, select the View tab. Clicking the View tab, we have a few different options here. We want to look at the Show group. Now, the Show group has three options. We have a ruler, grid lines, and navigation pane. The ruler turns the rulers on and off. We can also, while we're here, click the grid lines. It'll help you line certain items up, especially when you're setting things up for a printed document. It can be kind of confusing, so use that one sparingly. You also have the navigation pane. The navigation pane will show a formatted outline of different sections within a document, and that's another advanced feature that we'll cover later. Okay, we're going to turn that navigation pane off, but we do want the rulers on. Now, let's go back to the Home tab, and I want to point some things out on these rulers before we get started. Number one, the gray areas on the rulers. Those show the margins as they're defined. So the very top and the very bottom are the margins. And also in the upper left section here, I have a little tab mark here, and it shows the type of tab that will be created if we're to double click to set a tab in the on the horizontal rule. So in order to do that, all we have to do is click on a measurement mark, and it will create a tab. So in this case, I've highlighted right under the 1 inch mark and executed a left click on the mouse, and it put a left indent, a left tab stop right at the 1 inch mark, and that's where we want that first mark. So the first one, 1 inch, we want a left tab stop. Now if I click this tab mark in the upper corner, it'll cycle through a bunch of different tabs. This one is a center tab, so all the text will be centered on that tab mark. And then a right tab, the tab mark will always align the text to the right. So as you type, it stops at the right and it grows out to the left. We also have a decimal tab and a bar tab. And that's not a joke, that actually is a thing. Okay, but we're gonna focus on the three main tabs, or the left, the center, and the right tab. So we've created a left tab. Now I want to show you how the center tab works. We're going to create another tab stop at 3 inches. So we're going to use this center tab, and I'm going to click the 3 inch mark right there, place a tab mark, and then finally we're going to select the right tab, and we're going to place that at 5.5 inches. So exactly between the 5 and the 6. We'll find that longer line there, click that, and there we've placed 3 tab stops. Now I want to point something else out too. When I did that, my insertion point was right down at the paragraph that starts right below Create Tabbed Text. If I go to another paragraph, that disappears. So if you're creating tabbed text and you move to another paragraph, those same tab stops will not stay there. So be careful. You can use the Format Painter to carry those over. Now I've shown you this way, and we'll look at another way to manipulate and work with those tab stops in just a moment. But first, let's create our tab text, and we're going to use our class schedule as the data for this exercise. So the first column I want is to have the class name listed. So I'm going to use class name. And then when I click the tab button, notice I started on the left. I actually want to move that over, so I'm going to go back to bring the insert point back to the beginning of class name and hit tab. And notice it puts this little arrow in here. When I get rid of my formatting marks, of course that disappears. Then I'm going to come down back to the end of the class name here and type the tab key again. And when I select that, next I'm going to put section. Now notice what happens to my text when I start typing section. It centers on this tab line. So you can actually see right at the bottom here, here's my center, and if I come down, it's actually moving all the way down here. Okay, that's showing me that when I start typing, it grows out from the center. And then finally hit tab again, and we're going to have class time listed. Class time, and notice this time it grows from the right to the left. Okay, when I hit enter, and notice the tab stops are still up on the ruler. That's important. That lets me carry the formatting over. So as long as you hit enter, those tab stops will form. And this is great because now I can start putting some information in. So IS15, section number 50443, and that's going to be Monday, Wednesday, Friday from 9 to 10 a.m. 55279. That's Tuesday, Thursday from 8 a.m. until 9:50 a.m. And finally IS15, section 50442, and that's Tuesday and Thursday from 12 p.m. until 1:50 p.m. Okay, so now we've created a table of information that's a little bit different than an actual table. The formatting is similar in that we're arranged into rows and columns, but I can treat this more like text and less like cells in a spreadsheet. So let's take a look at another way to manipulate the tabs in a dialog box. What I want to do here is I actually want to make some changes to this. So the first thing I want to do is highlight just the tabbed text section, nothing else. Okay, I don't want to go any further below. I don't want to incorporate anything else because it just won't work right. Once I do that, let's go up to the paragraph group and click the paragraph menu launcher. And down in the lower left corner is the tabs button. When I click tabs, it shows me those three tab stops. Notice I have the 1-inch, 3-inch, and the 5-inch. And when I select the 1-inch, you see that the alignment left radio button is selected. 3-inch, the center radio button is selected, and on 5.5 inches, the right radio button is selected. None of these has leader selected, and that's okay. We don't want to do that. So I wanted to show you these. I also want to show you that if we clear all of them and hit OK, we lose not the fact that there are tabs there, but we lose that tab formatting, and it simply doesn't look right. So let me show you a different way to add tabs. I'm going to highlight the section of text that we're going to add the tabs for. We'll go back to the paragraph launcher, go back to tabs, and let's add the tab stops manually. So here's 1-inch. We want that to be left alignment and no leader, and we're going to set that. 3 inches, center alignment, and we'll set that. And then 5.5 inches, right alignment, and set that. Then when we click OK, those tab stops are reapplied and everything goes back to normal. Now you may have seen leaders. Leaders are a series of either dashes, underlines, or dots that connect columns of tabbed text. They help keep the alignment in, and they always go in front of that tab stop. They're used to create tables of context and indexes so that we can follow information across the page. In order to add those, we have to treat the tabs a little bit differently because we don't want to have the tab stops on the, we don't want to have the leaders on the top row, and we don't want to have those leaders in front of the tabs. Or I should say, we don't want to have that in front of the first tab. So we are going to highlight just the section where we want to apply the leaders and go back up to the paragraph group, select the paragraph launcher, and go back to tabs. Now, we want to start with the 3-inch tab because we want to put a leader between that first and the second tab line. And we're going to select the dots here and click Set. And then at 5.5 inches, do the same thing. Select leader number 2. At 5.5, select Set, and then hit OK. And notice now we have the lines that are in there. So it makes it a little bit neater, a little bit more elegant. But let's make this even better looking. So I want to go to the top here, and I want to highlight this top row, and I want to make that stand out, just like we made the top row stand out on the table above there. So when I select that row, I can either use the highlighting option on the mini toolbar, or I can use the font group and go to the text highlight color there, or I can come down here and change the font settings up in the font dialog box. So I have a whole bunch of different font options here. We'll look at the text effects. We don't want to do any of these changes right now, but we are going to use a different color. So let's make this font white. So there's the white font. It looks like it disappeared, but let's do something a little bit different. We're going to use this paragraph fill color back here, and we're going to use this shading. We're going to change the color behind the selected text. So I want to make this, let's make this a blue color. Let's look, we can make it a nice dark blue, and select that dark blue, and then we can select this text down here, and we can make maybe a light blue fill behind that if we choose to. Notice that it's going to change this a little bit, so we might want to go ahead and leave that blank as it is, or we can simply highlight each line and change it, and that's what I'd like to do. So we're going to just do every other one just to make it interesting. Okay, so there's a way that we can work with tab text and actually create a table of information without creating these tables. The nice thing is, again, it's treated as text, so I can do a few more things with it. Alright, so for your homework and your practice, you're going to create your own tabbed text with a minimum of 5 rows and 3 columns. So you should have practiced as you were following along with your own class schedule. So I'd like you to pick something else that you would like to keep organized and do tab text. You might even recreate your own table from up above and recreate that as tabbed text below. Anyway, good luck, and I will see you next time. This is Mr. Boyer saying see you later.